Okay, we're back. We're talking about dictionaries still. All right, so in the list comprehension videos I mentioned, we're seeing how to do this with lists, but there are similar things we can do with other data structures that we'll see later. Well, one of those is dictionaries. So in this video, we're talking about dictionary comprehension, as the slide says. So the syntax is similar, but it's also different. First thing right off the bat, instead of using the list brackets, we're using dictionary brackets. So that part probably makes sense. We still have the for blank in blank, but then up front, rather than a single blank, we have blank colon blank. And I'm saying a lot of this, it doesn't make sense, and I'm just talking about it like this. So it will iterate over keys by default, and we can use .items if we want to iterate over keys and values. But let's just take a look at our first example. So here we have a dictionary called numbers. And if we look at numbers, it just has first is 1, second is 2, third is, and they're all, the integer 1, 2, 3. Then here is our dictionary comprehension. We are iterating through numbers.items. So right here, this is a standard for loop we've seen before. For key, comma, value in numbers.items. We're going to take the key and just keep it the same. So each of the keys in this new dictionary starts with first, second, and third, just like before. But value, we're going to square, multiply by itself. So we end up with 1 times 1, which is 1, 2 times 2, which is 4, and 3 times 3, which is 9. So just one more time to reiterate, we're using key and value because we're using .items. So we're looping through, and for each one, we're basically adding a key value pair. Just like with a list comprehension, we only need one value here, which represents what to add to each list or to each part of the list. In this case, we need two pieces, the key and the value. Okay, let's try this again. Here's another example. What does this one do? So this iterable collection now, this is different. We're not using an existing dictionary. We're making a dictionary, but we're starting with a list. And we're going through it for each number in num. We're going to set the value to the square of num, but the actual key is going to be num. So try and pre-visualize this before I run it. What do you expect? And we get 1, 2, 4, and so on. So we have the initial number, num, as the key, and then the corresponding value is that same number squared. So here's another example. This time we have two strings. And what we're basically doing is looping through the strings, and we're taking the first of string 1, the first character, which is A, making that the key, and the value is 1. B, 2, C, 3. We're basically, I don't know what we would call this. We're like interleaving them. And to do that, we need to just write a loop to loop through one of the strings. So we're just using a range. For I in range, 0 to the length of the string. Then we're taking that number. And the reason we need to do that, rather than doing for character in string 1, is we would need the index to access the corresponding character in string 2. So it's better to use a range. So I is going to be a number starting from 0, and then we're just making the key string 1 of I. So that would be A the first time through. And the corresponding value, string 2 of I, which is 1. Hopefully you can see how that makes sense. We're basically just generating a number over here and plugging it in first in this string and then that string and setting them as corresponding key value pairs. Okay, so quick example here. I have a simpler instructor dictionary that just has name, called city, San Francisco, color, purple. And if I wanted to do sort of a joke version, but I'll call it yelling instructor, and I'll have every key and every value uppercased. So it would look something like this. I could call it, yelling instructor equals, we need a dictionary here, dictionary comprehension, and we'll just start with key. I'll do k dot upper colon value dot upper space for k comma v in instructor dot items. So I know it looks like a lot. This little bit of syntax is kind of gross with the parentheses and the colon, but we're just iterating through instructor.items, giving, instead of key and value, I'm using K and V just to keep it shorter. And then we're setting the key to be the uppercase version of the existing key and the value to be the uppercase version of the existing value. And if I look at yelling instructor, now I have name, city, San Francisco. Well, name, city, San Francisco, color purple. Anyway, just a silly little example. But let's look at conditional logic now. So here's another example. We have a list of numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're just going to iterate through that list and create a dictionary that specifies 1 is odd, 2 is even, 3 is odd, 4 is even, and so on. And just create a nice little dictionary that has, values mapped to if they're even or odd. So we loop through for num and num list. We have our dictionary brackets. And then this is the syntax. We set num : so our key is just going to be the number. We could do something else here, but we'll just leave it at num : and then even if num mod 2 is equal to 0, else odd. So we're going to set the corresponding value to be even if it's even, no remainder when we divide by 2, otherwise set it to be odd. So let's check it out. And if I paste it in, there we go, I get 1 odd, 2 even, and actually we could even do this instead of for number in num list, let's do a range from 1 to 100, and we get a massive list or massive dictionary that has corresponding key value pairs for each number, and its corresponding, what is this property called? Evenness, oddness. There's got to be a name for both of them. I'll look it up and put it below. And we're not limited to just doing our conditional logic on the value side of things, on the right side of the colon. If we go back to my instructor dictionary, when we were doing the uppercasing, let me just bring that back here. Here we go, yelling instructor. I could do something like this. Let's say, this is going to be silly, but I only wanted to uppercase color and leave name and city lowercase, but still uppercase every value. So I could do something like this. K dot upper if K, I'll do is color, else, we'll just do K. And if we look at yelling instructor now, name and city are lowercase, but color is uppercase. So you can see we have conditional logic as part of the key, and then the value is the same. So up here, we had conditional logic as part of the value. All right, so that just about wraps it up for dictionary comprehension, as well as dictionaries. We have some exercises and that sort of fun thing, but we're done with new content with dictionaries.